intro, and here we rock and roll. Welcome to Marriage with Joy, which is the most open discussion on the internet about the positive, purposeful, powerful, pleasant aspects of living in harmony with matrimony. Marriage with Joy unabashedly discusses the most interesting questions raised by listeners. Our informed and informative panel addresses issues with thought, wit, and aplomb. Voted best of the web 2 years running. Good day, beautiful, bountiful, beloved, immortal beings, and good-looking people. Now, how can I make the categorical statement that all the thousands, actually tens of thousands of people around the world that have tuned into Marriage with Joy, consciously and conscientiously, are all good-looking? Because by definition, if you did tune in here, and you want to be listening and be part of this, it means that you're always looking for and finding the good in life. That's the definition of a good-looking person, looking for and finding the good in life. You can't get much gooder and much more beautiful than the people that are on the screen, sans me. That was French, not without me. We have wonderful, fabulous our panel. I will say up front, we're missing one of our panelists today. And that's because I'm going to use the sympathy vote for everybody to think about sending healing hugs and love to Lori and her husband. Lori's husband, Brad, is in the hospital. And we hope and pray that it's just something minor, although I guess nobody goes to the hospital for minor things. However, it will turn out to be minor. That's the beauty of life, is that you can oftentimes look back at something. And I heard a great quote that was said to me by a man named Jim Rohn, R-O-H-N. Jim Rohn is one of the more remarkably successful, what people today call motivational speakers, except for one interesting thing. Jim Rohn had one of the softest, most alluring voices you'll ever hear. Contrast that with his principal, disciple, and student, Tony Robbins. Jim Rohn was very soft. He said this great quote. He said, if you can look back on something that happened a while ago and laugh about it or smile about it, why not do the same thing now? In other words, people go through stuff and we all know in almost all circumstances that you can look back on something that happened and recognize the ability to accept it, maybe even like it, maybe even realize it was wonderful, but give you a personal issue. I was standing up in the morning, completely healthy and hearty. In the evening, I was completely paralyzed from my neck down. I became a quadriplegic in a matter of hours, not from an automobile accident or spinal injury. Now, there's one look back upon that and say, whoopee, that was just something special. Yeah. Well, obviously not. That's dumb. However, I do look back upon it as one of the most remarkably powerful, positive, purposeful transitions in my life. So the ability to live in the moment with equanimity, with calm, with love, and the other C word that we like to say, which is all about today, celebrate, dance to the music. That's what we're going to be talking about today, because we're going to date this particular podcast. This is Marriage with Joy, and it is taking place on the 26th of December, which is known, of course, around the world as the day after Christmas, also known in most countries that were colonized by Great Britain. So I won't see English-speaking colonies or English-speaking countries, because America is an English-speaking country, but we don't celebrate something called Boxing Day, which is celebrated in England. And again, it all colonial output. Well, I guess we don't like to use the word colonial anymore, do we? Those places that had an overwhelming influence from the United Kingdom. So Boxing Day is actually a great day, and it's our segue into celebration. On Christmas Day, the general custom for people around the world is to exchange gifts, give gifts, have gifts, and enjoy gifts, right? And of course, have celebratory meals and time together with family. The next day, called Boxing Day, which I think began in the era just around Charles Dickens. And it may have been because of Charles Dickens, actually, and his famous expose of what was like to be poor in those times. People would take extra food and gifts and box it up and give to other people, especially to seek out people who were indigent, people who didn't have what we'll call today homeless, and make sure that that was a family event to box things up and to give. What a remarkably beautiful, not only an idea, but it is the way of life again, in England, and I guess in most countries that were colonized by the United Kingdom or Great Britain. So it is remarkable and to be remarked upon because it's truly the essence of what Christmas is about, and coincidental this year, which is the year 2024, and this is the final show, of course, of this year, this calendar year, is the remarkable holiday called Hanukkah. You can call it Hanukkah if you want, if you don't want to go into the Hanukkah. Either way, it works. And it's really the festival of lights. And it not only coincides, it is part and parcel of the Christmas event, even though Hanukkah predates Christmas by approximately 150 years. They're all of one piece because obviously, not obviously to everybody, those people who know that Jesus, now called the Christ, meaning the anointed one, meaning the Messiah, worshipped around the world by Christians, is born a Jew. It's just simple fact of life. And he celebrated Hanukkah, I'm sure, as well as he did Passover and Sukkot and other Jewish holidays. But the point is that this time of the year is a time where we want to bring light to the world. That is who we are, certainly in Western civilization, certainly in the Judeo-Christian civilization, and through specifically what we call, again, the C word, celebration. But we celebrate, we being Diane, Maura, Lori, myself, and everybody who's listening, the thousands, and we urge you to share this with at least 5 people so they'll be able to touch some 50,000+ people around the world and have them share with 5 people, is the ability to live in light every single day. So without further ado, I'm going to ask, we have several representatives up in the northwest corner of the country in this great time of winter where it's probably overcast already, maybe even about to get dark soon, Dr. Diane Medved. We have wonderful Dr. Diane Medved, and she is known as being a remarkably gifted raconteur, insightful psychologist, author, wife, friend, grandmother, and just all around great person. And in the lower right-hand corner of the United States of America, on the Gulf side, is our wonderful ambassador of life.
Happiness. You're the joy of happiness.
Ambassador of happiness. So says the United Nations, actually. Wonderful Maura Sweeney. And in the left-hand corner, off the screen at the moment, because she is in the hospital, and she is with her husband who's in the hospital, wonderful Lori McDermott, the wife expert. And here in the desert, where it's actually remarkably beautiful, this time of the year is just so pleasant here because it's dark in the morning and around 40 degrees. It gets up to about 65 degrees and bright and sunny, and then it happens. And in Henderson, Nevada, the ambassador of joy, your humble host, Barry Shore. So wonderful, Diane. We know that your house is occupied at the moment. Yes, occupied by wonderful beings running around who you welcome into your heart and home and hearth. So please tell us, what are you doing? What does celebration mean to you in the family context, and especially extended family through marriage? Because isn't that interesting, a part about marriage? That when you do marry someone else, you're marrying their family. Ah! That could be a great ah or a ah.
Well, what's interesting in our family is many, many wonderful things. But I just got at our Hanukkah party last night for the first light, and my daughter's home very close to us, and she'll be bringing her 2 kids momentarily after the show, as will my son and his 3 kids, and it's going to be chaos. He said, my daughter said, okay, I'll bring this, and they'll bring that, and and my son said, I'll bring the chaos.
That's the other C words. There's an underlying facet of celebration, and it has to be chaotic. If it's not chaotic,
There's a
then
guarantee here.
it's not loose enough to be celebratory, in my opinion.
My husband was jokingly suggested that he would be away from the house at the time we have the party, because it's definitely loud. But one of the things that struck me that my daughter did, she sent out her cards, holiday cards. Now, she's married to a convert to Judaism, and so they celebrate Hanukkah, but his mom has a Christmas tree and all the accoutrements, and the whole family, including my daughter and her son, come over on Christmas morning, and they unwrap presents wearing red onesies. And that's great. But you know what she did for her card? The only thing it says is, in all things, gratitude.
The essence of
What
celebration
celebration is gratitude.
Phew.
For your family, for each other, for being on this planet at this moment, for being able to look out the window and see, Barry, there's some blue sky out there. This is for 1 hour today. We get blue sky, and I'm spending it with you. So, and I was nearly late because I was making latkes, and I put them through, you make potato latkes by taking potatoes and putting them, if you're lucky, through the Cuisinart. And then you have to have eggs, and you have flour, and then you have to fry them all. The idea being shemen, oil, because it's celebrating the extension of a cruise of oil for 8 days that should have only lasted 1. It was pure oil. There's plenty of oil there, but it wasn't fit for lighting the menorah in the temple that had been reclaimed by Jews who fought and miraculously had a victory of the few over the many. And in a sense, that's what being Jewish and celebrating Hanukkah is. We are the few in this nation. And my granddaughter wrote a thing. Here's how we celebrate. I wish I brought it up. I put it on the stairs, but I was running up so fast I didn't grab it.
Bring them in. Bring them in. We welcome them.
They are not here. This is what she wrote about celebration of Hanukkah. Do you want me to get it?
Please.
It'll take like 10
seconds. You know, wait a minute. If a grandmother is saying, would you like me to get it? You're going to say, no, we can't have that written on. I mean, hello, isn't that? And Maura is waiting diligently by the fire, waiting for that phone call from her daughter. And
you can see her handwriting.
Wow, that's even better.
Can you see it?
No, not really, because you know what? Because it's only your face, so you want to read. I could see the little children.
Okay, because I blurred the background.
Yes. Okay, better.
Okay, so this is what it says.
How old is she?
She is 7, and her sister is now just turned 6. They're both, So how we celebrate Hanukkah. We eat latkes, and we light the menorah. Hanukkah is a Jewish, underline Jewish, is a Jewish holiday. It's also called the Festival of Lights. I hope you had a fun time learning about Hanukkah by Emily and Julia.
Oh, that's adorable.
And the point of it is, it's a Jewish holiday, and being Jewish in our culture means standing aside, means being different. And while the whole world has Santa Claus, and every mall you go into, they're lining up to get their picture taken. And so my kids asked me at one point, who's Santa Claus? And I said, he's an imaginary creature that people made up to increase their happiness at this time of year. He's an imaginary creature. How about the Grinch? Now, the Grinch is this big character. The point of it is, it's a time when imagination is good, and that kids' imagination is celebrated along with the facts of life, which can be grim, like the war that the Maccabees fought to reclaim the temple, and all the oppression the Jews have suffered over the millennia. So, yes, we accept and we understand and we study that. But at the same time, we want children's imagination to thrive. And Hanukkah is an interesting holiday because instead of giving toys, typically the gift would be Geld. Geld is German Yiddish for money. So it's a time when we give money. Why do we give money? I remember taking many classes on this, but the way that I like to think of it is money is possibility. Money lets you choose what you do with it. And that lets you choose to give 10% to charity. That lets you choose what's important in your panoply of wants. And I think that it's an opportunity that kids don't get if they just get a toy that's wrapped up in another plastic noisemaker. And so it's traditional for kids to get Geld. Now, of course, they want the chocolate Geld, and they will be getting
Right.
chocolate Geld. In fact, my other daughter, who came in from New York with her friend who's here from Philadelphia, went out to Target to get a chocolate Geld maker. It comes with the chocolate, you melt the chocolate, and they have these molds to make chocolate Geld. It's like, oh, okay. But anyway, we will be having chocolate Geld here. And again, the whole idea of celebration is that it's not just you celebrating each other, which it is, but it's you celebrating something with your culture, with your people, with your history, with your future. It's a time-based thing as well as a place and people-based thing. So it covers all the ingredients of life, past, present, future, those you love, those who we don't usually give much credit to, like kids, and those who can recall the days that went by that we need to not repeat or perhaps repeat, depending on what it was. So anyway, yeah, they're coming in a few minutes, and I have to get those latkes fried.
This is, you mentioned a number of C words. You mentioned the cruise of oil. And it's so interesting because cruise in this case is spelled Cruze, as opposed to cruising of oil. Okay. And you mentioned chocolate, the ultimate C word. And that's how you spell Hanukkah also. The Chanukah is really chocolate and it's sweet. And when I think of chocolate things, I think of chocolate bunnies around Easter time. That's another story because it's so good to eat. Sweet, wonderful things. I want to mention a couple of things that you talked about here, Diane, and one of them is the G word, the gratitude, because that is essentially the underlying process that we're all talking about at this time of the year. Hanukkah, Christmas time, it is about gratitude for life. Christmas oftentimes is known, of course, as that time of the year, right around the winter solstice, where we have the shortest amount of daylight. And that every moment past the solstice, past the 21st or 2nd, is another minute of daylight in our lives. Oftentimes, it can't even feel it until a week or 2 or 3 goes by. And yet, intellectually, we can know it. And we can physically begin to know it after a little bit of time. As you become an adult, you revel in the fact that we are living in a time of expansiveness and of light. And I really appreciate what you mentioned here about the idea of money as an avenue of choice. What a wonderful way to acculturate people, especially children, in the ability to not only have something, but to give it away. See, when you have a toy and you give a toy to someone else, again, the idea of Boxing Day, by the way, is really part and parcel of that. When you have a toy of your own and you give it away to someone else, that's a very great gesture. When you have a certain amount of money, let's just call it $1, and it's in dimes, and now the child is urged, you can't force, urged to give one of those dimes to somebody else. So they have to think, man, isn't that my dime? So to begin the process of understanding that, no, it's not. It's not your dime. Matter of fact, none of it is yours, really. The gratitude comes from the Lord. Okay, that's a bit heavy for a 6, 7, 8, 10, 12, even 52-year-old. However, the ability to give that piece to someone else and then to obviously, and give it oftentimes in a gesture of love, there's hardly anything more beautiful, right? It's like being at a table. I got to tell you a quick funny story. What happened in our household? Um, for some reason, my father wanted to play with us one time. So it happened to be at Hanukkah time, and he said, "Okay, here's what we'd like to do. This is what we did." My father was raised in an orphanage because he was part. His father and mother had 5 boys during the Depression, and it was just couldn't keep his father couldn't keep all the boys, so they sent 3 of them away. They were raised in Boston, born in Boston, sent them to Philadelphia to be raised in a Jewish orphanage. And in the orphanage, the woman who ran the orphanage was a very interesting person. Apparently, actually became my father's stepmother, funnily enough. But she taught the kids during certain meals to feed each other. You hear this? Okay, you don't have to feed the whole bowl, but at least one time, 1 or 2, feed somebody next to you. So he said, okay. And he did that with us at a meal. And we actually started doing it a couple times during Hanukkah time. And we kept it up during other times. We would feed each other. Okay, it's easy, sort of easier to feed your brother and you're sitting. I didn't have a brother, my sisters or my mother or son. But the idea of feeding somebody else at your own table, to me, we laughed. We loved it. It was fun. And when I thought about it later as an adult, I got goosebumps. I said, now, again, it happened to my father because he was in an orphanage, and the woman who ran the orphanage was a genius to be able to do something like that, because otherwise it could be very harsh. But to give, to have gratitude. And recently I was talking to some younger people, actually. They were under the age of 12. And I told them, we have 2 nations. I'm going to tell you, what nation would you like to live in? So almost everybody said, I want to live in the Jewish school. I want to live in America. I want to live in Israel. And one of them, are you ready for this? This is a 10-year-old. It was a girl. She says, I want to live in the nation called imagination.
Oh, I like that.
That's what you said, Diane. Is that not wonderful?
Yeah.
So here's what I did. I went through a quick exercise with them because I love words, as you know. And I wrote down a number of different words that have nation in it. So I said, imagination, I wrote on the board. Who would like to live in the world called fascination? How many people want to live in the world called donation? The idea of giving. So we had a lot of fun. The idea of, but you mentioned imagination. That's the genius to me of holiday, of celebration, of family, of chaos. Because you don't know what's going to happen. Somebody might say, let's play a game. I'm just making it up. Say, we used to play Risk. I don't know if anybody plays Risk or anything like that. But the point is that you can play a board game together and just do something that you didn't think about, because it's a time of imagination. Mm-hmm. Okay, wonderful, Maura. This time of year, you're celebrating. Your daughter and her husband are living in Maine, right? Where it's actually very cold right now.
The toasty 27, they told us yesterday.
It's going to be that high?
Toasty 27, yes.
Right. Well, people who live in Maine, by the way, I know your daughter's not native there and such that. So I grew up in New England, and Maine from Boston, just go 100 miles north, and it's a different world. It is much colder. I mean, bone-chilling cold. Well, actually, I just tell you very quickly. I'm sorry to monopolize. My father told us a story when he was in the Army. So he was stationed in Maine, in northern Maine, a place called Aroostook County. It's an interesting place. It was known for potatoes and timber. And he said it was so cold at night, this is during the Second World War, that they could hear the nails pulling out from the boards at night. And what they had to do in the morning was they had to go out and nail back big nails back in to keep the thing in place. That's how cold it was. I mean, you're talking about bone chilling. Okay, it's not like that where she lives, but it's the ability. So, Maura, talk to us what it's like down where you are, right on the edge of the Gulf of Mexico. with many different people celebrating different kinds of Christmas. So obviously the way you were raised is Catholic, and you're now celebrating with people with a Greek tradition. And I don't know, are they Greek Orthodox?
Yes.
So they're not celebrating Christmas.
They are both Americanized and very, very Greek. So both. But we have been doing, now, anyone who's been following us for a while would probably know my husband and I, we've been married 42 years, I guess, and we dated 4 years prior to that. In all of that, we had one daughter who we homeschooled, raised, and then she proceeded to move to Boston because she can't take the heat. So we're going up in a couple of weeks to visit. And the same is true with her husband. He is whiter than white. You give him too much sun and, he needs what's the highest level SPF? So we have to work it where they come down. Anyway, they'll come down during cold weather. We'll go up during warm, but we're still going up during the cold. But, I was trying to think all day when you said we're talking about celebrations, and I had so many things running through my head. I could jump around. I'll make you laugh on some of them. The first thing that hit me earlier today, because I have something I'm sending, I think you know this, for your birthday month and for Hanukkah. It's something that came out of my heart. Jimmy's going to mail it probably tomorrow to you. And I was looking up the colors of Hanukkah, and I figured they were blue and white, hence Diane. Christmas, you're usually red and green, but I don't think I look good in either one of those colors, but I did wear the fancy earrings. This is what struck me. Light. You know how with the Hanukkah, the menorah, and you're lighting a little bit more each night, and you are celebrating a victory, you're celebrating a miracle. And although we don't have a Christmas tree in our house, it's funny, we've always been very different. And maybe there's people listening today. But all I think about with Christmas, what is the magic of Christmas? It's the lights. We have, here in our neighborhood, I'm probably the chairman of the board for hospitality committee. Jimmy had to call me into the house about an hour ago to say, Maura, hurry up, you got the webinar coming on. Because I was with another neighbor. We had just had a Christmas Eve movie night in the neighborhood where we invited everyone and we watched Elf. Diane, you spoke about the magic and the possibilities. And I thought, how cute. We had some Jewish people here. We had some Christian people. We had probably some people that may be atheists. We all came together and we all brought food. And then we're sitting outside. It was freezing, believe it or not. And we were watching Elf, and everybody laughed. Everybody had a good time. It was childhood humor. And there was took place in New York. I don't know if anybody ever watched this. It was hysterically funny, but it also had the elements of magic to it, the magical part of the holidays. So you think about the lights. How often do we live kind of in our own dreariness, or let's say the mundane side of life? You could take a holiday and create your own light, Light. You can be your light, and you can share your light. I'll offer some other things. When we first got married, we would have had 4 children, 2 adopted from another country. We would have had 2 of our own. And we end up after all those years with 1 child who cannot take Florida heat. But the other thing about it was, because we moved from New Jersey, because my husband and I couldn't take the cold weather, to Florida. And sometimes we would have holidays on our own. And my husband is he's a really good writer. He's a great storyteller. He is wonderful in many ways. One of the things among a number that he cannot do is things around the house, things beyond screwing out in a light bulb. We had one Christmas, our daughter was so excited. This is another light story. We're having company over. I had the whole dining room set up, and my husband's out there, and he's got all these lights he's plugging in outside. Our little daughter, who was probably 6 at the time, was so excited. My husband is so thrilled. He's doing something for her. The company's getting ready to come. The sun's going down. My husband plugs in the light and had everything attached to the same main circuit. Every single light burned out, including outside, including the lights inside where we're ready to have company. But it became a funny thing. And what we ended up doing because of our lacks. And I think this might be a good segue even for some people that are listening in tonight and thinking, well, I don't have the ideal family setup. I don't look like the Victorian holiday, or I would remember this back in the Madison Avenue days where they had everybody decorating and everybody buying, or they might remember Mad Men. We were never that family. In fact, I will tell you that when our daughter was growing up, I never wanted to lie to her, never. So we didn't do, and by the way, this is only my thing because that was just my nature. And I could remember when she was a young girl, we brought her to somewhere and they had a Santa Claus. And I was probably going, oh dear, I'm so sorry. And I thought I put this on hold. Well, sorry about that. It's a neighbor. Anyway, so someone, I didn't want to be impolite, said, we've got Santa Claus here. Have your daughter sit. Now, I wasn't opposed to Santa. But anyway, little Kaylee is sitting on Santa's lap. And what does Santa say? What would you like for Christmas? And my daughter was always very polite. And she came back to me later and she said, Mom, do you know that was just a man dressed up in a costume? We used to give, we weren't the biggest gift givers, but I will tell you this thing that Diane said. You said guilt. First, I thought, is she saying guilt? We give the gift of guilt because I come from an Italian background, and the Catholics and the Italians usually got a lot of guilt. And I thought, I know that's not what Diane's saying, so I learned something new. But I remember that with our daughter, we would give her a sum of money, and her paternal grandmother would do the same, and she would partition it. And it would be, some of it would go into the bank. Some of it might be she saved up once for a violin, and then she saved up other money, and she would learn how to utilize funds. And they were there for here and today, but they were also there for the future and for planning. So I think with all the thoughts that were running through my head today, no one has the perfect answer for how to have the Madman Day holiday, or the Madison Avenue holiday, or the perfect family day. But you know what you could always do is take something that's special, take the light in you, take the gifts in you, take the joy in you, and share it and spread it with everyone else. So I will just give you as a case in point, finishing up with the lights. So my husband, being the Chevy Chase of Christmas, with losing all the lights, what we ended up doing, and it became a family, I would say a tradition. We would put our daughter, and we usually had 2 big dogs in the car, and we would go and find the best neighborhoods that had lights with all the experts. And our daughter had the best night. My husband didn't have to do any work, didn't have to feel like the failure. And it became the thing. Let's go out and let's go look at the lights. And what it did for us is that we created our own traditions. They were different from other people, and they became ours. We would play fun games. Let me tell you, talking about our neighborhood, when I told you I was in the car, we just game. I found it somewhere. You know what it is? It's a bluffing game, and it's silly.
Right.
We are planning to have in our own neighborhood. And what did this cost me? $3 at some woman's house that used to own a toy store. And it's a funny bluffing game, makes everybody laugh, brings everybody together. And we're going to do that on New Year's Day. And so what is it that you have in your home, in your heart, in your wherewithal? And it doesn't have to be money. It doesn't have to be guilt either. G-U-I-L-T. And you can take what you have. And the thing with me, I was never Susie Homemaker. I came from the era where women worked. They were professional women. That's what I did. My husband said to me, and he's sharing this with my daughter and son-in-law, both of whom were phenomenal cooks, and our sister-in-law in New Jersey. He said, I'm not sure of the person I'm living with. I think this has been the invasion of the body snatchers. He said, but your mother has not stopped cooking. And so that's a new thing. So what is it for any listener today, right? You may have a little, you may have seemingly nothing, but the gratitude in your heart, the spirit of giving, the spirit of sharing your love, you can literally bring that light, not only in your own life and in your own home and your own family, but you could bring it to those around you. And that's what we did in our neighborhood, because in Florida, not everybody has the family nearby, and everybody came together and had a good time. So that's my contribution.
And it's a wonderful one, fabulous Mora. I can actually see how Jimmy's outside working diligently, putting up all the lights, creating, getting ready for that magic moment, and then go.
It was like a moment of excitement, followed by literally, it was like everything just settled.
So
Our
as we
dog
said
needs-
before, it's that time when at the moment, you know, nobody's laughing. It's that, and yet when you look back on it, we can laugh. And that's why even at the time you can, okay, fine. We can, something good will come.
I think all of us ate around candlelight that night. See?
Mm.
And it became a memorable evening. So hopefully there's a little life lesson in there for
This is
everybody.
actually quite fascinating how families are. So you have wonderful daughter, marries a great fellow, and neither one of them can abide the Florida sun. Now, instead of moving just, let's say, to North Carolina or something, they have to go to Maine. Okay.
They used to be out where Diane was, and then they moved to Maine. But you know what I think what we're planning on doing? They have a home with an extra large lot. And I think Jimmy and I may end up having a little mother-in-law and father-in-law suite in the back. And they plant everything. They are just very different. We're more like city folk. They like to plant everything. And so we can go up and visit them in the warmer weathers when nobody wants to be here in Florida in July and August. And they could come down as they do in February and January when it's cool enough in Florida for them to go out for a bike ride or a walk without feeling like, you know, that Tyler needs, what is it, number 67 SPF.
So I'm going to tell you a little inside baseball story. This movie Elf, which is very cute and clever and such like that. So as you may know, I have a podcast called The Joy of Living, and I'm blessed to tell you that it has a very large listening audience. And recently, I think the past 6 weeks or so, I interviewed a fellow. His name is Tom. I won't pronounce his last name. His last name begins with a K. And one of his claims to fame is he's the author, he's the writer of Elf. He wrote it and produced it. Yes. So I'll have to tell him that there's a tradition and that you show that on New Year's Day. And it's because it is a great movie, right? It's
actually, it was Christmas Eve.
Oh, you see, you did it already.
We saw it already, and it was my choice. It was the only, and everybody loved it. And you know what it did? It brought, at least for me, because you wouldn't know this, but I tend to be a very serious-minded person, even though I'm the ambassador of happiness. But everybody loved it. They were all laughing. It was really silly, and it brought the child out in everybody. It was really cute, and it was a very cute movie.
Yeah, it's a great movie. The fellow is a very funny guy. He also wrote, just as an example on the other side, how people are capable of doing things. There's a great new movie that just came out, I think a month ago, called Bonhoeffer. Are you familiar with Bonhoeffer?
I have, I only saw it advertised. Was it good? I know that.
Outstanding. It's very moving. It is the diametrical opposite of Elf. It's about life. So Tom is the one who wrote Bonhoeffer. Powerful movie.
My daughter and I read about Bonhoeffer because when I was homeschooling her, but I've seen the movie and you'd recommend. Okay.
Yes. It's something. So you mentioned several words. I want to we'll use the acronym ELM. ELM stands for the word elf.
Yes.
L is for light and M is for magical, because you're right. This season is exactly that, is it not? It is magical. Anything and everything that you would want to have happen right now is available. Again, part of what I think we all talk about, teach, preach, live with, is that's the beauty and the magic of family, of marriage. Marriage is the other M word. It is a magical institution, a magical time where two people become more people because it's about the past, the present, and the future. And it's open to possibilities, as you said, Diane. That was one of the M word for money. It's open to possibility. The genius of marriage is that there is nothing that will constrain it when it's done for positive, purposeful, powerful, pleasant purposes. That is its ultimate genius, is it not? And we only have a few more minutes left, and we are coming to not just the time together, also this time of year. So I'd ask you, wonderful Diane, if you'd be kind enough to share just a few minutes, some magical insights that you have gleaned either from the season itself or just the past little while, even in anticipation of people coming to your home and creating chaos. We'll call it celebration. But just the anticipation of it, I think, is a magical experience, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that I tend to take on too much. In other words, I didn't have to make latkes on the last minute from scratch, which of course I do because I want to do it the best it can be. And I think we tend to take on too much, and instead we should just focus on the joy, anticipating the joy. But to add on to something you said, Barry, about the time of year, I think it's possible to have magic because it's dark. Now, up here in the Northwest, it doesn't get light in the morning till after 8 in the morning.
Mhm.
And it gets dark at about 4. It starts to get dark. So this magic hour that we have of daylight, which is moving away and I'm giving to you, was very precious. But the point is, though, that when the darkness comes, that's when the imagination takes over, and when the fear typically takes over. And instead of having fear, I think it's a genius that the holiday transforms fear into joy, connection, light. The Festival of Lights. It's on the 25th of Kislev. Kislev is a Jewish month, and some say that Jesus's birth wasn't really on the 25th of December, and that was a made-up day, and it could have had some connection to the Jewish holiday that was on the 25th of Kislev in the darkest time of year. And I think that since we're taking the darkness and we're turning it into a festival, and a festival of lights, 2 lights tonight, by the way, I think what that does is help us conquer our fear. It helps us conquer our fear of just the darkness, of the unknown, and of death, and of being alone. And it brings us the antidote, which is connection with each other. And when I have my grandkids over, I love the chaos. My husband, as I said, is ready to sneak out the door, but I love them. Of course, they're a lot easier to take individually. They tend to really get each other going, but just having them all together is such an honor and a privilege, and realizing that they're growing so fast. They always say kids grow like weeds. Well, you've got to catch the weeds while you can. Get lost in the weeds. It's really, really important that you not miss their growing up. And that's, to me, the joy of it, is that I'm there. I can anticipate and participate and be with them, and then reflect on I'm the stupid person who's there with the camera. I'm taking videos because I want to hear their voices and what they're saying. And I'm taking pictures of all of them. I've got one around my neck and on my phone in my hand, and people think it's obnoxious, but later they all want to see the videos.
Right.
Then they can relive it, and they get to have it, and we can share the reliving of it. So pictures and videos, that's what helps cement the connection that you have in the moment. The moment's important, and also reliving the moment is important, because then you can actually recapture what you had together and a time that will never come again. So it is so precious. Don't miss it. In this week between Christmas and New Year, get together with the people you care about and take pictures and take videos and remember this time, because it's so precious. Every moment of life, as my daughter says, in all things gratitude.
The M words, wonderful Maura, who's an M word in herself. Magical moments, making it all so wonderful. Yes, the ability to be and to share. And even though your kids are in the other M word, Maine, you can see them with the genius of what's happened, the magic of our time. What's the magic of our time? Connectivity, connection, even though it may not be physical, is available.
Mhm.
And it really is something, as you said, pointed out, Diane, so wonderfully, with the imagination, there is no limitation. It's wonderful. So wonderful, Maura. Please share with us some closing words of inspiration and light and love for this time.
Okay. I'm so glad people don't know this. I'm always so delighted. This is the routine. Diane gets the original question, and then I could bounce off of it because it goes everywhere. I want to share something so cute. You're talking about the photos and you want to be able to preserve. I'm one of those people. If we have the family together and we're doing something together, and this has been for years, we used to go on annual cruises with the extended family, which was wonderful. And I'd be always the one, okay, everybody, come on, get together. We're doing the group picture. I had a brother-in-law say, Maura, you don't understand. I don't do pictures. I said, forget about it, Tony. You're getting in. Do you know we can mark every family gathering? Many of those people are gone, including my brother-in-law, Tony, who I loved so dearly, the one who didn't like to be in photos. We have so many great group photos, and you can look at them, and what you've done, or in any photo, you capture a moment. And while you might remember it at some level in your mind, but to also have it preserved, it's almost like reading a letter. That the words off that paper and the energy that comes out of the photograph brings you right back into the moment again. And it takes it, the love, the life, the laughter, and everything else that goes along with it, even if it is the chaos, it's all contained in that picture. Now, somebody else listening today might appreciate this. I don't yet have grandchildren, but I imagine I'll have several to come in the future. I hope, God willing. Anyway, today I'm with a friend of mine working out, and she said to me, oh, Maura, she said, I have got to show you this. She said, first of all, we had bad weather yesterday for the holiday. They were celebrating Christmas, and she's a grandma, and she's got 2 little granddaughters. And she said, I'm waiting and waiting and waiting for good weather to come out because we had gifts that we gave to the 2 little girls, 1, 2, 1, 5. She said by 4 o'clock, it still wasn't good weather. She said, so we decided, all right, let's take the gifts out in the house. It was their home, the grandparents' home. And her husband's an engineer. Everything is just perfect. He shows me this video, and they're little electric cars, and they were ice cream vehicles. Bright pink with white, and you go in the back and you pull out these little fake ice cream things. So you got a 5-year-old that knows how to drive it and a 2-year-old who doesn't. So I said to her, well, Cindy, what do your walls look like? She said, I'm calling the painter. So there you get the chaos, because she said the 2-year-old, she said she was banging into every wall, and she said all we did was laugh. So, and I said, I don't even have my own grandchildren, but I can appreciate other people's joy and rejoicing. You could find joy anywhere you look. And it doesn't even have to be your personal joy, but you can experience the joy. 2 other thoughts, and these might be a little bit more serious. I did not know this about your background until just today's episode, Barry. You said your dad was an orphan. And you shared this.
Actually, he was raised in an orphanage.
As an orphanage, right? Okay, at an orphanage.
Right.
And yet, did your father ever imagine that from his background, he was going to have a son like you, who would become an ambassador of joy? Now, think about that.
No.
Well, you know that I'm the ambassador of happiness, and I always speak about living life happily from the inside out. What people probably don't realize about my background is I could almost cry when I think about it. I had so much death when I was a little girl. There was death everywhere. That if you look at pictures of me, and I do a lot of pictorials in my presentations, because people, they look at me and think, oh, Maura, she always had the perfect life. This is a very interesting seed, and maybe this is a place where I could leave it, but maybe somebody today isn't rejoicing, or maybe they're feeling sorrowful, or maybe, Diane, you mentioned this, the fear, the darkness. I had many years where, I was really traumatized by losing people that were close to me to death, and I was traumatized. So in many ways, it was like living in the dark. I actually, and here's a big word, I'm sure you'll come up with an acronym for this, but it was choice. Will we be a victim of our circumstances, or will we choose to be, as I mentioned this last time, to be the benefactors and to receive something good? And I'm telling you, the choice that I made at about 9 years old is I am going to grow up to be happy. And do you know, there's an old proverb, Jewish proverb, and I've got to really look up the actual reference to it, that says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And
Mhm.
I learned the meaning of that many years later. To think upon something over and over and over again, it literally becomes you. So if you were to look at me from pictures of childhood, probably through college and even halfway through law school, you'll see a very somber, dark person, lost, lonely looking, like I lost my best friend. I chose, I'm even going to say it this way, I chose the light that I knew existed inside of me. And this is so true. It's a true story. I was halfway through law school trying to please a family that wanted more to be a lawyer. And I knew the light inside of me was going out at 23 years old. And I thought, this is not good. And I knew there was a light. And one day I literally could not get up to drive myself to class. And I couldn't find my voice. My voice was lost. And I knew I had to follow the internal light because it was my life. And so I left. And of course, my family was like, oh, Maura, you could have been a lawyer. It didn't matter that I was successful in corporate life and management. But I grew up and I took the difficult things and I used everything as a choice, as an opportunity, and a building block for character, for personal growth, for trying new things. And always in my mind was the hope that, and the expectation that I was going to become who I was meant to be, which was really to be really an extension of love in the world. And I couldn't really give it until I found it and started nurturing it within me. And so we kind of started out with the light, and I'm finishing with it. But Barry, I didn't know that about your background. I want to say, I want to honor you today, and even your dad. Think about that and the things we could bring. And I will say this, had I not had some of those experiences in my own life, I could have been overcome by them. But instead, I have been to foreign countries, war torn. People didn't even understand my language when I get up on a stage, and they'd say, Maura, if you didn't understand, or if I didn't understand a word you spoke, I knew you understood me, because these were people without hope. They couldn't see their way out of the darkness. And all I was doing was bringing my light. And truly, I have to tell you this, came into the world with love of the world. And so wherever you are, share your love, share your light, and everything you have, and make the world a brighter place.
Woo! So I'm going to talk about 2 words you mentioned, then we'll complete it with a 6-word phrase. Use the C word and an H word. The CH, of course, stands for chocolate or Hanukkah. You said character and hope.
Oh.
Hope. Hope is a great acronym. It stands for helping others progress every day. We live with hope. We live in hope. We bring hope to people all around us. Because when you do that, that's how you ignite the light in someone else, in oneself. I am privileged to tell you that last Sunday I hosted a 4-hour holiday special, and I was the host. We had many guests and such like that, and I partnered with the Salvation Army, and it was had some people come on and give some of their stories and such. It was quite moving and such. We're going to complete this cycle with what I call the 6 most important words that anybody could ever internalize, utilize, and leverage in their life. And these 6 words are: choice, not chance, determines your destiny. How you choose to respond in any given situation will determine, as you said, Maura, your path in life and your trajectory. Choice, not chance. People think, well, it just happened. What are you going to do? And that's the way it is. Now I'm in law school. I got to finish up. If the light's going out, I can choose to be happy. I can choose to live in joy. I can choose to learn how to pronounce the word that most of the world, 99.7% of the world, mispronounces this word. It's spelled A-L-O-N-E. So most of the world, 99.7% of the world, pronounces it incorrectly. They pronounce it alone. And that's how people tend to feel, shriveled and alone. It's really all one. That's who we are. That's what this show is about. That's what Diane is about. That's what Maura's about. That's what Lori's about. Your humble host, Barry Shore, the ambassador of joy. And so we urge everyone, use your light. Ignite others. Yes, only you can make forest fires. Not prevent them, make them. Choice, not chance, determines your destiny. So as we like to do a blessing from Diane, from Maura, from Lori, from myself, is we urge everybody, go forth, live exuberantly, spread the seeds of joy, happiness, peace, and love. Go mad, go make a difference. And remember, before we leave, we do a group hug for thousands of people around the world. Heart hug spells, heartfelt, unlimited giving. 1, 2, 3. Make it a great one, everybody. Enjoy, and we'll see you next year. Bye. Welcome to Marriage with Joy, which is the most open discussion on the internet about the positive, purposeful, powerful, pleasant aspects of living in harmony with matrimony. Marriage with Joy unabashedly discusses the most interesting questions raised by listeners. Our informed and informative panel addresses issues with thought, wit, and aplomb. Voted Best of the Web 2 years running.